My name is Edward Miller, a 54-year-old man with salt and pepper hair that started graying in my 30s. For 16 years, I've been the senior vice president of sales at Oakwood Industries, a commercial woodworking company situated in Denver, Colorado. My business card declared my title, but my real function was keeping the company afloat. I personally oversaw our top 10 accounts. These weren't just clients. They were relationships forged through countless phone calls, numerous dinners, and 16 years of proactively addressing potential problems before they even arose. I knew their children's names, their golf handicaps, and their favorite vacation destinations. They contacted me directly, even before consulting their own teams, whenever they needed assistance. Across the polished mahogany conference table, Samantha Hayes tapped her perfectly manicured nails against her tablet. "Your compensation package is obsolete," she announced. "We're reducing base pay by 35% and restructuring commissions." Samantha Hayes had arrived 4 months prior, following the acquisition, clad in designer suits and carrying the weight of an MBA from Stanford. She'd spent her initial weeks immersed in spreadsheets and conducting closed-door meetings with executives from the acquiring firm, Evergreen Holdings. I understood her assessment of me, an expensive, old-fashioned relic who should be grateful merely to retain his employment. "Is there a timeline for this transition?" I inquired, maintaining a calm tone. Effective immediately, she replied with a tight smile. The document she'd slid across the table detailed a 35% base salary reduction, a commission restructure that rendered my current earnings unattainable, even with significant growth, and substantial benefit cuts. "The new structure will incentivize growth," she stated. "Everyone's compensation is being modified to meet industry benchmarks." I glanced at the paper, calmly concealing my internal turmoil. I closed the folder, rose, and extended my hand. "Thank you for the clarity," I said. Her smile faltered. She'd anticipated argument, negotiation, perhaps even desperation. Instead, she received a handshake and a composed departure. Later that afternoon, I observed her watching from her office as I carefully packed a few personal items into a cardboard box. Nothing dramatic. A photo of my daughters at their college graduations, a pin set gifted by a valued client, and an old sales award. On my way out, I exchanged a brief nod with Robert, our chief financial officer, a colleague since the company's inception. His eyes conveyed what he couldn't articulate. This wasn't merely cost-cutting. It was about eliminating me. In the parking lot, I didn't slam doors or speed away. I quietly placed the box in my trunk, adjusted my rearview mirror, and drove off, carrying 16 years of client relationships that Samantha had unwittingly handed to the competition. I had constructed that sales department from the ground up. When I joined Oakwood in 2008, we were a regional player generating $9 million annually. By last year, my team had surpassed $80 million in sales, with my personal accounts accounting for over $15 million. My father owned a small cabinet shop in Chicago, where I learned everything about wood, joinery, and finishing before I turned 16. After college, I held several sales positions before finding my niche at Oakwood. Something clicked. I understood the products inherently, having grown up around them. I could effortlessly discuss technical specifications with architects and pricing strategies with purchasing managers within the same meeting. Oliver Peterson, the owner, recognized my unique abilities. "You're not just selling products," he'd often remark, "you're selling trust." He empowered me to develop my department according to my vision. I hired ambitious, driven sales representatives and instilled in them the same principles Oliver had taught me. Relationships are paramount to transactions. When Oliver sold the company to Evergreen Holdings last year, I was apprehensive but not panicked. Acquisitions were a normal part of the business cycle. I would navigate this transition as I had others. The warning signs emerged gradually: replacement of the executive team with outsiders, a new marketing director focused on rebranding our digital presence, and finally, Samantha. With her polished presentations emphasizing operational efficiency and resource optimization. Initially, the changes were subtle: tighter travel budgets, increased approvals for client entertainment, and a reduction in the frequency of my executive team meetings. "We're just streamlining," Samantha had explained during one of our earlier meetings. Nothing personal. But it became personal when she began scheduling calls with my key accounts without my involvement, questioned discounts I'd negotiated years ago that maintained client loyalty through multiple price increases, and introduced 2 of her former colleagues as new regional managers. Robert had attempted to warn me during our quarterly budget review. "They're scrutinizing the sales compensation structure," he'd whispered, glancing towards the door, particularly the legacy arrangements. I was the only legacy arrangement remaining. A week before that fateful meeting, I spotted Samantha having lunch with Isabella, my newest hire. Their intense conversation ended abruptly when they noticed my presence. Isabella avoided eye contact when I later inquired about their meeting. I knew then what was coming, not the specifics, but the overall direction. That evening, following Samantha's announcement, I reviewed a decade of sales reports in my home office. 16 years of consistent growth, 16 years of building Oakwood Industries into an industry leader, 16 years of loyalty repaid with a dismissive "your package is outdated." My phone buzzed. A text from Frank Davis, purchasing director at Summit Commercial, our largest account. Heard rumors of significant changes at Oakwood. Everything all right? Call me. Frank and I had collaborated for 14 years, navigating 2 company restructurings, a divorce, and his son's college applications. We weren't just business associates, we were friends. I poured a generous amount of bourbon and called him. "Edward," he answered immediately. "What in the world is happening over there?" He went on to describe a call from a woman claiming to be taking over his account, Samantha Hayes, the new sales director. He spoke of pricing reviews and a new vendor management system. Frank's voice hardened. "We have a contract, and our current processes work. I don't need someone dictating how I manage my suppliers." I let the silence linger. "Edward," Frank whispered, "are you staying? Because if you're not, we need to talk." In that instant, everything became clear. My value wasn't in my title or sales figures. It resided in 16 years of earned trust, 16 years of problem solving, and 16 years of relationships that could readily transition with me. "I'm exploring my options," I replied cautiously. "Well, consider this," Frank responded. "If you join another company, call me first before I have to deal with Harvard Barbie again." After the call, I drafted an email to David Henderson at Peak Supply Group, a company I'd met at an industry conference last year. He'd mentioned their plans to expand their commercial woodworking division. I didn't send it immediately. I saved it as a draft. The following morning, 3 more clients called, each expressing similar concerns. Samantha was already reaching out, implementing changes, and disrupting relationships she didn't comprehend. I returned to the office to clear out my desk. Robert discreetly slipped me a folded piece of paper, my client retention numbers, and their average annual spending. He understood my value, even if Samantha didn't. That afternoon, I finalized my resignation letter, sent the email to David, and consulted my lawyer to review my non-compete agreement. It applied to products, not clients. I couldn't sell competing woodwork for 6 months, but nothing prevented me from maintaining my relationships. I felt a sense of purpose, of clarity. There's a certain power in being underestimated, in being dismissed as obsolete. It renders you invisible until it's too late. I spent 2 weeks evaluating my options before accepting David's offer at Peak Supply Group. The position was ideal. Senior Vice President of Business Development, with full autonomy to build my division. "We want your expertise, Edward," David had stated during our final meeting. "You understand this industry's dynamics. We don't need to reinvent the wheel." The next day, I contacted Samantha to discuss my resignation and transition plan, proposing a 2-week period to facilitate a smooth handover of my accounts. "That won't be necessary," she'd coldly replied. "We've already contacted your clients. Isabella will manage the transition. These relationships are complex," I explained. "Each account has nuances requiring time to understand." "We have all your notes in the CRM," she interrupted. "And frankly, your approach is rather antiquated. We're implementing a more data-driven client management strategy." I could have argued, but what was the point? She judged me from the moment she arrived. "HR will process your exit paperwork," she concluded. "Return all company property by the end of the week." 3 days later, I met Frank from Summit Commercial for lunch. He hadn't responded to Isabella's calls, and she'd escalated to his superior. "Your replacement sent me a client satisfaction survey with 48 questions," Frank lamented, shaking his head. Then followed up with a presentation on their new customer success metrics. "I don't need metrics. I need someone who understands our business." I maintained my composure, choosing not to disparage Oakwood. "Where are you heading next?" Frank asked directly. "I'm joining Peak as SVP of Business Development." Frank raised an eyebrow. "Interesting. They've been pursuing our business for years." I took a sip of water. "I start in 2 weeks." "Well," Frank said, sliding his business card across the table, "call me when you're settled." The following day, I received a certified letter from Oakwood's legal department reminding me of my non-compete obligations and warning against any improper solicitation of Oakwood clients. The letter listed every major account I'd managed. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Henry Lee, CEO of North Star Construction, another top 10 client. Edward, what the hell? This new woman is trying to alter our payment terms. Says our account structure needs optimization. We've been on net 45 for a decade. I'm no longer with Oakwood, I replied carefully. Yeah, I figured that out when she called. Where did you land? I gave him a brief overview of Peak. Before I could finish, he interrupted. They handle the same product lines? Similar, yes. Good. Call me Monday. I want to discuss options. By the end of the week, 5 more clients had contacted me. Each conversation followed the same pattern: complaints about Samantha's approach, questions about my new position, and requests to connect upon my arrival. I hadn't solicited a single client. They were coming to me. On my final day at Oakwood, Samantha called unexpectedly. I understand you've been contacting Oakwood clients, she stated, her voice strained. I've spoken with several individuals, yes. Many are personal friends after 16 years. We consider those proprietary business relationships, she retorted. Any attempt to divert that business would constitute a breach of your separation agreement. I understand my obligations, I replied calmly. Good, she snapped, because the last thing you want is a legal battle with Evergreen's attorneys. After the call, I forwarded the recording to my lawyer, who confirmed that my non-compete only restricted me from selling woodwork for 6 months. Nothing prevented me from selling other construction supplies to those same clients through Peak. Nothing prevented those clients from choosing to follow me. Samantha had inadvertently revealed her greatest fear. She was beginning to grasp the consequences of pushing me out. My first day at Peak began with a revelation. We've been trying to penetrate Oakwood's market for years, David admitted during our morning meeting. Your predecessor spent 18 months courting Summit Commercial without getting past their purchasing department. Frank Davis doesn't trust easily, I agreed. David leaned forward. Here's what I don't understand. Oakwood's client retention rate is nearly 95%, while the industry average hovers around 70%. What's their secret? I almost chuckled. Their secret was sitting right in front of them. It's not a secret. It's relationships, I explained. When Oliver ran the company, he understood that contracts might retain clients on paper, but relationships maintain loyalty when competitors undercut your prices. David nodded slowly. And the new management doesn't grasp that. The new management views relationships as inefficient. Samantha wants automated systems, not phone calls. Before I could elaborate, my assistant interrupted with an urgent message. Robert, Oakwood CFO, wanted to meet. We arranged to meet at a quiet bar downtown after work. Robert appeared nervous, glancing over his shoulder as I approached. I shouldn't be here, he said immediately. But you are, I replied, ordering drinks. Robert pushed a folder across the table. The board meeting was yesterday. I thought you should see this. Inside was a copy of Samantha's quarterly strategy presentation. The initial pages contained standard projections and marketing plans. Then I saw it. Client transition strategy, Miller accounts. The plan detailed how they would transfer my former clients to Isabella and 2 new account managers. It included talking points to address objections regarding my departure and a relationship reclamation timeline. However, what truly captivated my attention was the financial projection, showing my clients represented not $15 million in annual revenue, as I'd always estimated, but $19.8 million. Nearly 26% of Oakwood's total revenue. They never told you your book's true worth, Robert stated quietly. Oliver knew, but after the acquisition, he shrugged. Why are you showing me this? Robert took a long drink. Because what they're doing isn't right, and because Samantha is already missing forecasts. She told the board it's temporary disruption during the transition, but the numbers don't lie. He tapped the folder. She's already lost North Star, hasn't she? I didn't confirm or deny. Client decisions were no longer my responsibility. It's going to get worse, Robert continued. She's implementing price increases across all legacy accounts next month. The board approved it based on her analysis that we've been underpricing the market for years. Now I understood. Samantha hadn't merely wanted me gone to save on compensation. She'd viewed my client relationships as obstacles to her aggressive revenue strategy. With me gone, she could raise prices, alter terms, and implement new systems designed to extract greater short-term profits from relationships I'd spent years cultivating. There's something else, Robert added, his voice dropping. They've been auditing your expense reports for the past 3 years, searching for irregularities. They won't find any. I know that, but they're creating a narrative. If clients start leaving, they need someone to blame. As Robert departed, he hesitated. I'm updating my resume. Just thought you should know. Driving home, I felt an unsettling calm. I wasn't just learning Samantha's opinion of me. I was learning Oakwood's true assessment of me all along. My value had been evident in their numbers but absent from my compensation. They'd happily benefited from my relationships while quietly planning to extract more profit once I was gone. The truth wasn't just that Samantha had underestimated me. Oakwood had undervalued me for years. 2 months into my new role at Peak, I'd established a routine. My office overlooked downtown Denver, and my small but growing team comprised 2 hand-picked young sales representatives. I hadn't directly solicited any former clients. I didn't need to. They came to me. First was Henry from Northstar, who called the day after Oakwood implemented its price increase. That's a 12% hike with no warning, he fumed. Can Peak match our original pricing? We could, and we did, adding value-added services Oakwood had never offered. Then came Westerly Developers, followed by Regional Builders, then Denver Modern Construction. Each had similar complaints, unexpected price increases, inflexible new policies, and impersonal service. By the end of my second month, 4 of my former top 10 accounts had shifted their business to Peak. I ensured each transition was seamless. My team worked weekends to guarantee flawless initial orders. I personally visited job sites to oversee deliveries. Word spread throughout the industry that following Edward Miller to Peak meant superior service at competitive prices. Then my phone rang. It was Samantha. We need to talk, she said, her usual confidence replaced by thinly veiled panic. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop near Peak's office. Samantha arrived 15 minutes early, already sipping a latte when I arrived. This has to stop, she said without preamble. What exactly? You know what? Poaching our clients. I stirred my coffee. I haven't solicited a single Oakwood client. Bullshit, she snapped, then corrected herself. For major accounts have left us in 8 weeks. All of them mentioned you by name. Clients make their own decisions. Samantha leaned forward. We can make this easy or hard, Edward. Easy means you back off, and we don't pursue legal action for breach of contract. There's no breach, I replied calmly. My non-compete prevents me from selling woodwork for 6 months. Peak's construction supply division doesn't compete with Oakwood's woodwork. Her eyes narrowed. We're exploiting a loophole. I'm adhering to the precise terms of an agreement your legal team drafted. I took a sip of coffee. Perhaps they should have been more meticulous. The board is asking questions, she admitted, her voice softening, about client retention, about revenue projections. That sounds like an internal Oakwood matter. She tried a different tactic. What do you want? A consulting arrangement? A finder's fee for leaving certain accounts alone? I almost laughed. She still didn't understand. I'm not interested in arrangements, I said, standing up. I'm interested in doing my job well. The rest takes care of itself. The next day, Frank from Summit Commercial called. Their 3-year contract with Oakwood was up for renewal. We're putting it out to bid, he said. Samantha's been calling me daily, offering to beat any competitor's price by 5%. That's a good offer, I acknowledged. Is it? Because I'm considering more than price here, Edward. I need someone who understands our business. Someone who answers the phone at 7 p.m. when a project is in trouble. 2 weeks later, Summit awarded Peak a 2-year supply contract worth $5.1 million annually. It was a significant victory, the kind that makes headlines in industry publications. That same day, I received an email from Robert, containing a forwarded internal message from Oakwood announcing Samantha's reassignment to strategic development initiatives while they searched for a new sales director. I didn't respond to Robert or contact anyone at Oakwood. I simply forwarded Summit's signed contract to David with a note, first of many, planning to reach $25 million in new business by year-end. The wheels were in motion, and Samantha was just beginning to comprehend the true cost of her miscalculation. 6 months after joining Peak, I stood in the company's conference room, surrounded by my team. On the wall-mounted screen was our quarterly performance report, $16.2 million in new business, with projections to hit $25 million by year-end. 8 of my former top 10 Oakwood accounts had followed me to Peak. David walked in with a bottle of champagne. The board just approved your division expansion plan, he announced. Additional staff, increased marketing budget, everything you requested. As glasses were passed around, my phone buzzed with a text from Robert. Oakwood's Q3 earnings call in 30 minutes. You might want to listen in. I stepped away from the celebration to dial into the call. Oakwood's new CEO, Richard Thompson, sounded tense as he addressed investors. While we anticipated some disruption following our strategic restructuring, sales have underperformed against projections. We've experienced unexpected client attrition in our commercial division. An analyst interrupted. Can you quantify that attrition? We're seeing estimates that Oakwood has lost nearly 22% of its annual revenue in the past 2 quarters, he replied. Those numbers are speculative, Richard deflected. We're implementing an aggressive client retention strategy. Is it accurate that your largest account, Summit Commercial, recently signed with Peak Supply Group? Another analyst pressed. The pause was deafening. We're in ongoing discussions with all our key accounts, Richard finally responded. As the call continued, I received an email from Isabella, my former hire who'd sided with Samantha. The subject line read, "Any openings at Peak?" I rejoined the celebration, declining the champagne. David noticed my expression. Everything all right? Just got some confirmation, I replied. That afternoon, an industry newsletter broke the story. Oakwood Woodwork struggles after exodus of key accounts. The article specifically mentioned my move to Peak and the subsequent client migration. It quoted an anonymous Oakwood employee stating that the company had fundamentally misunderstood the value of its senior sales leadership. I never had to utter a word. The numbers spoke for themselves. A year to the day after Samantha informed me my package was outdated, I sat in my expanded office at Peak, reviewing our annual numbers. My division had generated $31.5 million in revenue, exceeding even my ambitious projections. My team had grown from 2 sales representatives to 12, with a dedicated client support staff. We'd moved to a larger floor in the building, and David had hinted at a board position opening. I kept a photograph on my desk from our division's holiday dinner, relaxed faces, genuine smiles, a team that understood what I'd always known. Business is built on trust. My assistant buzzed. There's a Samantha Hayes here to see you. No appointment. I paused, then nodded. Send her in. Samantha looked different, less polished, more weary. Her designer suit had been replaced by something less ostentatious. Thank you for seeing me, she said, remaining standing even after I gestured to a chair. What can I do for you? I'm with Hamilton Group now, she explained. Business consulting. I was hoping to obtain your perspective on Peak's approach to client retention for a case study I'm developing. I almost laughed at the irony. I think you already know my approach. She nodded stiffly. You made a miscalculation at Oakwood. You did. The market is discussing how you dismantled a company without uttering a word, she continued. That's a powerful reputation. I didn't respond. Samantha hadn't come for a case study. She'd come for absolution or reconciliation. I wasn't offering either. After a moment of awkward silence, she placed her business card on my desk. If you ever wish to discuss industry trends. I appreciate the offer, I said, standing up, but I'm fully booked these days. After she left, I glanced at the card, then discarded it. That evening, I drove to my daughter's new house for dinner. She'd recently been promoted to senior architect at her firm. How's work, Dad? She asked as we sat on our patio. Good, I replied simply, building something that will last. And I was. Not with this time, but with the same principles that had guided my entire career. Do the work, keep your promises, and value relationships over transactions. In the end, Samantha had provided me with an unexpected gift. She compelled me to demonstrate to myself and everyone observing the true worth of 16 years of trust.